Hey guys, what's going on? It's Chamber here, and today we will be maxing out your Warzone FPS. Now, I've already made a video on this. You can go check it out, but I actually might honestly unlist it. But there's a lot of new things that I've discovered in the past year and a half since I uploaded a video on this. And there's a new map, and I think that I should do this before Warzone 2 comes out, because a lot of these things will still be around. Now, Warzone actually released an update a little bit ago that removed about 50% of the foliage on Caldera. I'm getting about a 30 FPS boost in FPS from this. So how about I show you guys some other things I'm doing to boost your FPS even more. So let's get right into how to boost your FPS. One of the most important things besides doing this video is just overclocking your PC, making it faster. So if you're interested, join my Discord. You can learn about overclocking. We have a bunch of very smart people in there. We'll tell you how to get more FPS. At the same time, I also do offer a service. So my service is $100 US, and you will get the most out of it. I overclock. I set up your windows. I do everything. I even recommend upgrades for you guys just to make sure that you're getting the most out of your PC. You get so much FPS, you can get similar FPS to me with similar specs, obviously. You're getting the most out of it. So if you're interested, join the Discord. It's just a great place to be also. We're playing games and stuff now, which is awesome. But let's get on to the video. So first of all, let's open up Battle.net. Just one thing, just on game launch, exit, just so you have nothing running in the background. Next thing you want to do, hit your Windows, hit where Warzone is. Hit scan and repair, and then begin a scan. I actually had some stuttering before, but once I scanned the actual game, I had no issues. So this is actually a really big thing. Just do this, make sure all your files are correctly set up, and then you're good. Now onto drivers. So what you want to do if you have an Nvidia GPU, so you want to type in Nvidia drivers. When you're on this page, click beta and older drivers. Now select the GPU you have. So for example, let's say you have a 3090. So click this, make sure it's on standard, make sure it's on DCH, sorry. Now the drivers I'd recommend 496.49 if you want a newer driver, and especially if you're playing some other games as well. But if you do not, do 472.12. This is actually a really good driver still. Highly recommended. If you're on something like a 3090 Ti, which is a newer GPU, doesn't support these, just use one of the latest drivers. It'll be fine. You'll still get you'll still get good FPS, obviously. You don't have to worry about any of these drivers. So now for AMD though, so let's say, for example, I have a 6900 XT, that's what's in my build. So I'm going to use these drivers, go to Windows 10 or 11. I'm going to recommend the recommended driver. I'm going to show you. So if you go to the optional driver, actually, it talks about some known issues, which are stuttering. Now, I didn't experience any, but just use the recommended. It's slightly better from my experience also. So just recommended right now is the best driver for Warzone. Now we're going to get over your Nvidia settings. So first of all, just open up your Nvidia settings. So for me, I actually have to go to my control panel to do that. Typically, you can just right click your desktop or go to your taskbar. So Windows key R for me and control. Sorry, I'm on one PC right now, so it's like hard to look at. So it's hardware and sound, Nvidia control panel. All right, so here you go. Now, first of all, what we want to do, make sure that your monitor is at its advertised refresh rate. If you have something like a 270 Hz monitor or 390 Hz, you're going to actually go into your monitor settings and enable the overclock mode if it is not showing up in here. G-Sync, if you do have G-Sync, I would recommend turning it off. It gives slightly, if you're not getting your monitor's refresh rate though, turn on G-Sync. But if you're getting above that, turn it off. It is slightly lower latency. PhysX. So select your current GPU. I have a 2080 Ti, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, this setting, manage GPU performance counters, hit desktop, enable developer settings. It'll be lower down here if you have a DCH driver, but just click allow access to GPU performance counters to all users. Next, adjust image settings with preview, hit use my preference emphasizing performance, hit apply. I'm not going to because I already have these settings set. Now scroll down. Now the important ones, threaded optimization on, that does allow it to use multiple threads for the driver, helps with some driver overhead stuff. Texture filtering quality, do high performance. There's no quality difference, so don't have to worry about that. Power management mode, prefer maximum performance. This will just allow it to pull a little more power out of the GPU. Preferred refresh rate, do highest available or there's a different setting if you have G-Sync. I believe it's max refresh. Low latency mode you actually want to have off. You'll be using the Nvidia reflex mode in the game. Turn gamma correction off. That's on by default. Now let's go on to the AMD settings. Back on the gaming PC. If you want a full in-depth video on an AMD GPU guide, I would highly recommend that you watch my video. I'll link it right now. But definitely check that one out if you want more FPS out of your AMD GPU. But let's just go over some basic settings. So everything should be off in here. Image sharpening is personal preference. This doesn't affect your FPS. I like to have it enabled. Little C more. Wait for vertical refresh. Turn this off. You don't want to be using VSync at all. Frame rate target control. Turn that off. Anti-aliasing is default. Anti-aliasing method multi-sampling. Turn off anistrophic filtering. Texture filtering quality. Change that to performance. It's the same thing as that texture quality filtering option on Nvidia. Just do that. Surface format optimization. Turn that on. Tessellation. So typically this is application settings. Hit override or AMD optimize. Override will get you higher FPS. And set this to off. This will disable the tessellation for you guys, which is something known to hurt AMD GPUs. Then turn all these. If you want to, you can actually reset the shader cache. I would recommend that, especially if you haven't updated your drivers in a bit or just gone through a bunch of different stuff. And that is all you actually have to do on an AMD system. Now we're going to go over some basic Windows settings for you guys. So just hit Windows key and I. First of all, we're going to go to System. If you're on an Nvidia system, go to your graphics tab in the display settings. Turn on hardware accelerated graphics scheduling. This will get you higher FPS. If you're streaming on the same PC, if you do run into any issues, disable this. This might cause some issues on OBS on Windows 10. On Windows 11, you'll be fine. Next, you want to actually go to the game tab. I don't have that on right now, but on the gaming tab, you want to have game bar off, but game mode on. That is something very important. I see a lot of people turning that off. You want to have it on. Next, you're going to want to go to the privacy tab. Scroll down to background apps and turn these off. This will just stop stuff from running in the background. It's an important thing. Actually, one that don't see a lot. So delivery optimization, turn this off. There should be some networking things that'll actually help you. Basically what this does is turning this off stops updates from other PCs being installed or helping other PCs install it. So it's just something that's really important to do. Now, what you also want to do now is go to your control panel, hit Windows key R and control, hardware and sound, power options. You're going to want to set high performance or ultimate performance. If you want to do ultimate performance, just type in ultimate performance power plan and then hit the first link and scroll down, power CFG. Just copy this and go into PowerShell. You can do that by hitting Windows key and X and hitting PowerShell admin. And then just copy and paste this in. I'm not going to already have it though. And then you can just go into the control panel and select that. That is the best power plan. Now let's get to the most important setting in this whole thing. So go to Documents, Modern Warfare, Players, ADV options.ini. Now, video memory scale, set this to 0.9. It'll use almost all your VRAM, but not all of it. Render worker count, literally the most debated setting. What you want to do is, you want to go to your task manager, CPU. So for example, I have 8 cores on my CPU. I have a 12700K with hyperthreading disabled. So cores, you want to divide that by 2. So if 8 divided by 2 is 4 plus 1 and you get 5. So divide your cores by half and add 1 and boom, you've got your correct amount of CPU. Cloud config, this doesn't matter. A little setting, if you are on an AMD system, this is something that you want to do. So go into this, now scroll down a bit. It is 18475232626. You want to type in disabled. This will be like enabled or enabled plus boost by default. This is the Nvidia reflex setting actually. So it's automatically set. Disabling it does give you more FPS. I don't know why it's auto set, but it is. Maybe something in the video is like, hey, do this and then AMD will hurt. So yes, just make sure you disable that. And now we can actually go into the game and go over some settings. Now we're in Warzone. Now, if you've reinstalled a driver, you're going to have to allow the shaders to install. I'd highly recommend doing that, but we're just going to go right to the graphics tab. Make sure you're in full screen mode, not full screen borderless. I see a bunch of streamers and people I work with being like, but at the fast alt tab, hit your Windows key, hit alt tab. That's how you switch your screens. That's going to be the best option, trust me. Now, make sure that's obviously at the max refresh rate. Your render resolution, this should be your highest display resolution. This should be what your monitor is running at. If you have a 1440p like me, run 1440p. If you have a 1080p, run 1080p. Don't lower your resolution unless you have a really underpowered GPU and you're on 1440p. 1440p uses significantly more GPU power. This game is very GPU limited, especially if you're on an Nvidia GPU. AMD at 1080p, it's fine. I'm at like 96% in 1440p and about 80% at 1080p. So that's something interesting to talk about. Custom frame rate, I set so unlimited. One thing I'd recommend actually for you guys. So menu custom rate 30, autofocus 30. So basically you'll run unlimited FPS or 300 FPS gameplay while you're in the actual map, but menu and autofocus are at 30. What this will do is this allows your GPU to cool down a lot. It's not pulling as much power because this menu pulls a lot of power. So just do that. Brightness is whatever you want. One thing I didn't talk about actually for your Nvidia users is what reflex setting do you want to use? Now, the best one, just the one I'm going to recommend, is enabled. So that is typically if you're more GPU bound, which you will be in this game. So just leave it to enabled. If you want to, you can obviously test enable plus boost and as well as disabled. If you want the lower your resolution, the more likely I would recommend enabled plus boost. But for most people, even at 1080p, you're going to be wanting to run enabled. I'm actually going to be making a new video on this soon with my 2080 Ti for you guys. But just as a general rule of thumb in this game, use enabled. Field of view and ADS or whatever you want. Camera movement, I like to set this to 50. This just allows you to see a little clearer. Streaming quality low. You should not be texture streaming unless you're like on a hard drive, but you should really recommend getting an SSD for this game. That's something I'd recommend. All these texture quality can kind of help sometimes with visibility, but I don't see a difference, so I don't care. Just have all these disabled. Maybe you want bullet impacts so you can see where stuff is hitting. That's just like a visual one that doesn't affect FPS. Texture, remember, on-demand texture streaming, disable this and clear your texture cache. Restart the shaders installation if you're having any issues. Filmic Strength, I don't like to use this. Doesn't do anything. Film grain off. Literally, it shows on the side-by-side comparison a worse looking image. Anti-aliasing off. This adds a little bit of blur to the game, and that's something you're really having to fight in a Warzone is blur. Make sure all motion blur and depth of field are disabled. Shadow map resolution low. Turn on the 2 cache settings. They need to be enabled. This gives a good amount of FPS boost by allowing you to use the VRAM and the RAM to store textures and to load them faster and also in faster storage. Particle lighting low. Ray tracing. If you use ray tracing in a competitive battle royale, you shouldn't be actually caring about how you perform. I would not recommend RTX. This literally will destroy your FPS, even on a 3000 series GPU. Ambient occlusion disabled in screen space reflections, especially screen space reflections, because this requires anti-aliasing for it to look good. That is literally all of the settings. Now, one thing I want to talk about actually is the difference between Caldera and Resurgence. So Rebirth or Resurgence Fortune's Keep, the new map, actually uses a lot more GPU. Just because it's a smaller map, it will use a lot more GPU. Battle Royale is a little more CPU bound, especially if you are on 1080p, especially if you're on an AMD GPU. Just the lower your resolution, the more you will be bound by your CPU speed and your RAM speed than your actual GPU. That's why I recommend overclocking everything. Now, if you have not already, just make sure you go into your BIOS, Google how to enable XMP. It should be at something faster than 2133. I have no idea. If you know you have like 3200 megahertz RAM and it's only running 2133 or 2400, you're not running XMP. So make sure you enable XMP. That'll give you a little boost on both AMD and Intel. That's all the best Warzone settings you need for max FPS. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you guys are new. Join the Discord. Follow me on all my socials. Follow me on Twitch. I'm going to try and stream more. Maybe you can stream some Warzone. If you have any Warzone or overclocking questions, you can ask me there. But I'll see you guys in the next video. The next video is actually me testing timer resolution, because that's maybe that's a Warzone FPS secret too. Should you be using it or should you not? But I'll see you guys later. Peace.